Hi, you guys. This is a recording of the lesson for this week since you didn't have class with me because I had another event that I had to be at. So I'm just going to record this for you. We're going to start in the grammar book on page 61. So go to page 61 in grammar. We're talking about the who, which clause, and this is page 61. You guys already know about who, which clauses. You use them in your writing. We've looked for them already in this book. But today we're going to talk about the whose, the word whose in a who, which clause. You can use the word whose in the who, which clause. There is a note right here. When whose begins a who, which clause, whose will not function as the subject of the clause because whose functions as a possessive adjective and shows ownership. So there will be a different subject in the sentence if there's a whose clause, who, which clause that has the word whose in it. So this is your example right here. Robin, whose arrow broke, missed the mark. So this used to be two sentences. Robin missed the mark and Robin's arrow broke, but they combined those two sentences and used the word whose in place of who or which. So whose takes the place of the possessive adjective Robin's. Look at this clause, whose arrow broke. The verb is broke. And the subject is actually arrow. It's not going to be whose broke. It's going to be that the arrow broke. So the subject is arrow. The verb is broke. Whose is just signifying that that's the beginning of the who, which clause. Okay, so it's a little bit different than what you're used to, but you're going to mark it exactly the same. Place parentheses around the who, which clause. Write W/W above the word who or which or whose, right? Write V above each verb and S above each subject. The men whose lands were taken hid in the forest. So your who clause is right here. Whose lands were taken. So whose signifies the beginning of the clause. Lands were taken. That's the end of the clause. You're still marking it with W/W. The verbs here are were and taken. And if you ask what were taken, it was the lands that were taken. So the subject is lands in this one. That's pretty easy to spot. You're going to mark it like that in your book. And then we have run-on sentences. Those are those sentences that just keep going. There's too much information in one sentence, and it really needs to be broken down. So they're going to do the mistake on purpose in this book where they put two main clauses together without any punctuation. And it's called a fused sentence right here. Fused sentence is when two main clauses placed in one sentence without any punctuation between them. This is a common type of run-on error. The easiest way to fix this error is to place a period at the end of each main clause. So all you're doing is looking for that when the sentence just seems like it's going on and on and on, it probably is. You need to find a spot for a period to break it up. So look for two main clauses that are missing a period between them, correct a fused sentence by putting a period between the main clauses, and then capitalize the first word of the new sentence. Here's your example. Originally, this did not have a period here, so I'm going to read it as if it didn't. The men could not pay their taxes, they hid in the forest. So these are two completely individual thoughts, complete sentences, main clauses. The men could not pay their taxes, period. They hid in the forest, period. So they're two separate sentences. All you got to do is put that period between them. You're marking the main clauses with square brackets. You're still identifying the subject-verb pairs. So in the first sentence, could and pay are the two verbs. If you ask who could not pay, it's the men. So the subject is men here. The second sentence, they hid in the forest. The verb is hid, and you ask yourself, who hid in the forest? They hid. So that's the subject-verb pair there. On the side, it just tells you how to fix it. MC main clause period. MC main clause period. MC period, MC period. That's it. That's how you're going to fix those. There's a little bit more on the back. Okay, on this page, it's a think about it page. It's page 62. You're going to think about the word swimming. And when you first hear that word, you might think, oh, well, that's easy. That's a verb, right? Swimming, something you do, right? Well, that's true. It is. But it depends on how it's being used in the sentence. And remember, they can only function as one type of word in the sentence. So it can't be a verb and an adjective at the same time. But it could be either one in different sentences. So look at the example here as a verb. This is the easiest one to identify. Robin was swimming in the river. It's an action. He's swimming, and was is a helping verb. So was swimming, they go together, is telling what Robin's doing. That's easy. That's a verb. Here it is as an adjective. Robin jumped into the swimming hole. Now, a swimming hole is like a natural hole in the ground somewhere that's deep and is full of water, and it's kind of like a swimming pool, but they call it a swimming hole. That's telling what kind of hole it is or what kind of pool it is. It's a swimming pool or a swimming hole. So this becomes an adjective, even though it has ing, it's now an adjective in that sentence. And then look at the noun. Swimming was Robin's favorite summer activity. So swimming in this sentence is a thing that he enjoys is the activity. So swimming was Robin's favorite summer activity. Swimming is a noun in that sentence. They just want you to be aware of that. Don't just automatically assume if it has ing that it is a verb. A lot of times it is, but not always. So you have to watch where it is in the sentence and what it's functioning as. All right, we thought about it. That's what they told us to do. Think about it. So consider yourselves having thought about it. Page 63. This is the practice page. Because of the desperate times, these men whose families were hungry stole money from corrupt noblemen. They gave it to the peasants. Corrupt is your vocabulary word. It just means dishonest or giving into bribery. Anytime I see that word corrupt, I always think of politicians. I know that's terrible, but it's true. There's always some shenanigans going on with politicians. But that word means like something's wrong. It's a negative word. Corrupt meaning dishonest practices or bribery is going on. Check vocabulary. I'm just going to go down the list. I might skip some things, as you guys know, to do the easiest ones first, but articles are pretty easy. Go ahead and find those. And there's 6 nouns. So we've got times, men, families, money, noblemen, peasants. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Pronouns, not these. I'm going to tell you that right now because these is telling which men it is. That's actually an adjective. So they is a pronoun and it is a pronoun. It is in place of money. Obviously, money is not a boy or a girl. So it's a thing. We're going to call it in the next sentence there. Adjectives, desperate times, these men. Families, now it doesn't come right before that like these other two, but hungry is describing the families. So hungry is an adjective. And then what kind of noblemen are they? They're corrupt noblemen. That's going to be another adjective right there. Skip the prepositional phrases, go right to the who, which clause. I know this one has whose, so whose, and it goes all the way to hungry. Whose families were hungry? That's the who, which phrase. Clause, not phrase, it's a clause. And then the 2 main clauses, I see an opener right here. So I know that the main clause is not going to include the opener. So I'm going to start my main clause here with these and go all the way to noblemen. And then there's another main clause right at the end. So all the way to noblemen, and then they gave it to the peasants as a separate main clause. By the way, that's a clue. We need a period here to separate those 2 main clauses. You probably already figured that out. Subject verb pairs, I'm going to find the verbs first. We've got were, stole, gave, That it? I think that's it. Yep. Subjects. The verb were, so the families were hungry. That's the subject there. And then who stole the money? It was the men. The men stole the money. And then in the last main clause, we have gave it to the peasants. Who gave it to the peasants? It was they. They gave it to the peasants. Back to the prepositional phrases. Well, I see one at the very beginning, because of the desperate times. And by the way, just a quick reminder, I know I've told you this before. Whenever you have of after the word because, it is no longer a because clause. It's a prepositional phrase. Because of changes it. Now it's a prepositional phrase, because notice in this phrase, because of the desperate times, there's no verb in there. So I know that because of is a preposition, right? And it's the beginning of the prepositional phrase. If it said something like, because the times were desperate, because the times were desperate, so were would be your verb, then it would be a because clause, but because it says because of, it is a prepositional phrase. Okay, that's one. From corrupt noblemen is another one, and to the peasants is the third one. Opener is a prepositional opener, which is in number 2. This opener down here is a subject opener, which is in number 1. Capitals. End marks, we already put in one. We'll put in the other one there, and boom, we're done. Done with grammar. Your homework will be pages 64, 65, and 66. All right, this is a speed lesson, in case you didn't know that. Speed lesson, because I'm not talking to anybody. I'm recording myself. If it's too fast for you, you can always pause the video. All right. We're moving on to lesson 11 in your book. It's actually going to be Thomas Jefferson that we're going to talk about this week. Thomas Jefferson. This is page 102, lesson 11. And just the first thing I'm going to do with you is read it, or for you, I should say, because you're not there. I'm looking into the future, and I'm imagining you watching this with me. So there you go. Page 102, Thomas Jefferson. Thomas Jefferson was an amazing man with many talents and bold ideas. He was one of America's greatest architects. He designed his own magnificent home called Monticello. Monticello? Monticello. I'm trying to remember. Hold on. It's Monticello, right? Let me ask Siri. How come I'm drawing a blank here? You know me, I have to check. Here we go.
Monticello.
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 It sounds like he says Monticella, but I know it's not that. Monticello. Okay, Monticello. There we go. That's the name of his magnificent home, which is a National Historic Landmark today. It is the building pictured on the back of today's nickel, in case you wanted to look at it. Jefferson's profile is on the front of the coin. Jefferson was an excellent lawyer, an accomplished musician, a scientist, and a politician. He spoke 6 languages fluently, and he was an eloquent writer and great thinker. His writings inspired many people in America's fight for independence. In fact, Jefferson is probably most famous for writing the Declaration of Independence. It took him only 17 days. In it, he included the idea that all men have rights, such as life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. He called King George a tyrant who was denying Americans their rights. He believed that men should govern themselves, not be ruled by a king. After the Revolutionary War, he became America's first Secretary of State. He was America's second vice president under John Adams and America's third president. While in office, he upheld the ideals of limited government and rule by the will of the people. He died on July 4th. How cool is that to die on 4th of July? I would think as a president, that's kind of cool. July 4th, 1826, exactly 50 years after the Declaration of Independence was adopted. He will always be remembered as one of America's greatest founding fathers. Thomas Jefferson. All right. On this page, you guys know what to do. You're going to fill in this keyword outline. I'm not going to do this with you on the video because you guys are good with filling this in. I will help you choose a topic though, because it's not just going to be Jefferson, Thomas Jefferson. It's going to be something specific about him that you're going to look for facts with. Now, what we're doing this week again is summarizing a reference. And I know we've talked about summarizing before. When you summarize something, you're only telling some of the information, S-O-M-E. You're not telling all of the information. You're summarizing. You're only telling some of the information. So what you need to do is look for the facts that relate to that topic that are interesting, relevant, or important. And that's what you're going to write in your keyword outline. So your topic for your Roman numeral, well, we're talking about Thomas Jefferson, so we could put TJ. We know that TJ is going to be Thomas Jefferson. The fact that he was a writer, that's what I'm going to have you guys focus on for this topic, writer. He was a writer and he was inspired by people. And I'm just going to draw some people here. He was inspired by people. And if I look at the story, he inspired people, not he was inspired by people, but he inspired people with his writing. And I'm looking at, if you look back on this page 102, about partway down there, it's about a little less than halfway down the writing. His writings inspired many people in America's fight for independence. So his writing inspired people. He probably was inspired by them too. It probably went both ways, honestly. So when you're looking for facts here, you're looking for 1 to 5 or 6 or 7 bits of information, facts, and details from the paragraph on page 102 that support how he inspired people with his writing. And you're going to jot those things down. Try to stay focused only on that topic that supports that. And then down here, structure practice, you can use the keywords that you wrote for your topic line or synonyms or those words to write a topic sentence for your paragraph. They just want you to practice, writing that sentence at the bottom there on page 103. And this is like a speed lesson, like I told you. So page 104, we are introducing a new dress-up word. I'm pretty sure both of you, I know for sure Nasiah knows this one. And I'm pretty sure, Derek, you know this one too from other classes, but we're bringing in the www.asia word. Notice there's no .b here. That's because you already have the because clause on your checklist. So we're leaving out because in this one. This is separate. These are only the www.asia words. And it's right here, the list: when, while, where, as, since, if, although. No because on this, right? We're stopping on although. They're listed here on the side if you forget. So basically what you're going to do now from this checklist is use one of those words in a sentence. It does not have to be the first sentence. It has to be somewhere in the sentence, like this example. Jefferson developed the idea for Monticello when he was 21. America doubled in size while Jefferson served as president. So we have when and while used in the middle of the sentence here. So the clause begins with one of those words. The sentence does not have to begin with one of those words, but the clause does. To indicate a www.asia clause, underline only the first word of the clause. So you're underlining only when or while or where, as, since, if, although. One of those words you're underlining. It contains a subject and a verb, and we already looked at those two sentences right there. It's added to a sentence that's already complete. So like here, Jefferson developed the idea for Monticello. That's a complete thought. That's a main clause. And then we're adding it to when he was 21. That's the Asia clause right there. America doubled in size. That's a complete thought. And so we're adding more information using one of the Asia words here while Jefferson served as president. Down here, they're wanting you to practice that. Oh, by the way, let's talk about the comma rule. I skipped that one there. If it follows a complete sentence, no comma is needed. So notice in the first example right up there, there was no comma. But if the Asia clause comes first before the main clause, then you do need a comma. Like this one. Today, if you look at a nickel, you may see Jefferson. You will see Jefferson. I don't know why they said you may see Jefferson. You will see Jefferson. I guess if you're looking at a nickel, you may see whatever. It's a weird sentence. But anyway, the clause comes first, so you do need a comma there. Add a www.asia clause to the sentence. Thomas Jefferson called King George a tyrant. It talked about that in the actual article on page 102. He was denying Americans their rights, right? So we could say something like, since he denied Americans their rights, you could say Thomas Jefferson called King George a tyrant since he denied Americans their rights, something like that. Or while, as, any of those would work. More practice on this page. I do want you to work through these practice pages since we didn't have class this week. You're just going to think of some quality adjectives here, some synonyms. I'm okay if you want to look these up online. I'm okay with that, or in a thesaurus if you have one at your house. Synonyms for amazing, synonyms for magnificent. Here we have, this is the because clause. So do not put of next to because here. I know I talked to you about that earlier in grammar. Because of changes it. So don't put of here. So Thomas Jefferson was an incredible man because he stood for our American rights. He was not afraid to be bold in standing for our American rights, something like that. Okay. It needs to have a subject verb after because. It has to have a verb in there and a subject. All right, strong verb dress up. Here's the word wrote. So you can think of other strong verbs for wrote to put here. The who, which clause. By the way, you can use whose whenever you use a who, which clause in your article or in your paper. And then the ly adverb dress up. These are just getting your juices flowing so that when you go to write the paragraph, you already have some stuff that you thought about using. So that makes it easy if you go through these pages. So I want you to do page 105. Page 106 is some vocabulary practice. You should have already cut out these vocabulary words from week 11. Go through those on your own, looking at the word like we do in class, reading the definition, reading the sentence, and then you've got some two blanks here. You can figure out what words fit in those blanks. This is page 106. And finally, the checklist. You still have your topic clenchers. Don't forget those. You need to highlight or bold the words that repeat or reflect. 2 to 3 key words, highlight or bold those. You also need to, give it a new title. That's on here too. Now you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 dress ups. 6, count them, 6. You're still only writing one paragraph, which is like super easy peasy cheesy for you. But make sure you include all 6. And don't include your banned words. And do include your vocabulary words. Don't forget those. And this time, I want you to have all 4 vocabulary words in your paragraph. You can do it. I believe in you. You got this. Use this checklist. This is how I grade your homework. So if you're forgetting anything on here, I'm taking off points. Let me just remind you, if you forget something, I will take off points. So please, please, please use the checklist when you sit down to write your paragraph. Make sure you put all these things in there. Your goal is to get 10 points. That's how I assign my homework. Every homework assignment is worth 10 points. By the way, if you don't get 10 points, let's say you get 9 or 8 or 7 or something like that, that means you're missing something. It could be that you're missing your grammar, or it could be that you're missing something on the checklist. I will always tell you in the comment area, if you didn't get 10 points, I'll tell you why. And then you can fix it and then turn it back in and still have a chance to get 10 points. So I want you to, your goal is to get 10 points on your homework every time. It's a good goal and you can do it. That's it. This has been fun. It's been kind of real, but not, because you're not there. And I feel weird talking to myself, but hey, at least you have something to go off of for your homework. And next week is Thanksgiving break. You do not have class next week. You do have this homework this week to do. Next week, no class, no homework. It's like a real break, at least a break from me. I don't know if your mom or whoever does your schooling will want you to do other stuff. I don't know, but at least you don't have this. All right. Happy Thanksgiving. I'll see you the week after that, which will be actually December. So I'll see you in December. Bye.